Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. On behalf of Alaska Public Media, thank you for watching Hangar Flying. This evening, we are happy to have back on our show Bill Compton. Bill is an accomplished pilot with over 10,000 hours and has an airline transport pilot and flight instructor certificate. He owns a turbocharged V-tail Bonanza, which he's flown all over Alaska and the world. He's also a published author and has an article in our latest newsletter from the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Well, thank you, Mary.
So we were chatting about an accident that took place in Southeast Alaska in August of 2008. And we determined that the pilot had been flying all day with multiple stops from the lower 48. And he got into a situation where, had he recognized that he had been fatigued, it could have been prevented. So before we talk about fatigue, maybe let's talk a little bit about flight planning and having an option for an alternate or a plan B.
Well, part of every instrument flight plan includes the destination and the alternate. There are exceptions to requiring an alternate, but flying the Alaska coast and British Columbia coast, since the airports are so far apart, it really is wise to always have an alternate.
And for a plan B, there's always an option to stay with the airplane. The pilot took off just before sunset, so things were getting late in the day. He had been in the airplane for a long time. It was getting dark. There was nothing preventing him from sleeping in the airplane, uncomfortable as that may have been, or even staying overnight in the town.
Certainly. He and his passenger were elderly folks. He was 82 and his friend was a little bit older, but they could have walked into town. And their bed and breakfasts in Gustavus. They could have taken off and flown to Juneau. They could have gotten briefed on a communications outlet at Gustavus. He could have been briefed and had a better plan. Could have had some advice from the flight service specialist. So he missed doing all those things. And I think all of that points back to fatigue.
You mentioned in another article that's likely going to be published soon that every flight should be approached with a willingness to cancel in the face of newfound risks, no matter the inconvenience, expense, or embarrassment. Can you expand about this? I think it's great advice.
Well, my expansion of that is that pilots need to have the courage to be a chicken. Let yourself be embarrassed. This is too much for me. I'm not going to do it. The hair is standing up on the back of my head, and that's a sign to me that I should not hit the starter button on this airplane.
So pilots should listen to what their senses are telling them. My flight instructor used to say, always have an out, but you put it much more elegantly. But there really is no reason, if for whatever feeling pilots have, whether they're starting to notice symptoms of fatigue, whether they are just getting tired of sitting in an airplane, there's no reason not to cancel that flight and stay put.
Yes.
In our next show, we're going to talk about some of the symptoms of fatigue that you have experienced and how you've mitigated some of those. Can you tell us how you got to experience some of these symptoms?
Oh, well, I've had a bunch of flights that included sunset and sunup the next morning. And flying between 2 a.m. and sunrise, sleep is just about overwhelming. And on a solo flight, it's with the knowledge that if one goes to sleep, one is dead. And even with a co-pilot, you might be be safe enough to sleep, but I find it's impossible for me to sleep in an airplane because it's just not comfortable, and there's always something to worry about.
And if it's not the sunrise, sunset, altitude also can play a part, correct?
Oh, absolutely. You know, at sea level, normally, if we have normal cardiovascular system, the saturation of our blood with oxygen is 99 to 100%. But up at 10,000 feet, which is a common altitude flown for distances, most would have a saturation of 88 to 92%. Not okay.
Thank you so much. We're going to get back into this on our next show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure, Mary. Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not a member of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation but would like to learn more about the accident we've been discussing, please send us an email at aasfonline@gmail.com. We'll make sure you get a copy of the article. Until next time, fly safely.